Krishnamacharya and Pattabhi Jois both taught yoga as an aspect of Patanjali Yoga. According to Krishnamacharya, the vinyasas that he learnt were part of a commentary written on the Yoga Sutra, the Yoga Kurunta. We don't know for sure if it actually existed.
Right.
But the idea was always that this practice was a Patanjali Yoga. And I think what's happened a lot of the times is we're trying to fit the yoga philosophy into a physical practice, whereas actually the physical practice was there to serve the philosophy or the spiritual practice. So the other thing that Pattabhi Jois would, he'd always start his theory sessions by saying yoga is chittavritti nirodha. You guys are all sitting here, your body is here, but your mind is somewhere else. And you can't concentrate. And for that reason, we need the second chapter of the Yoga Sutra, the Sadhana Pada, which explains practices which help to purify the mind and body, get you in good shape, so that you can actually think about sitting and meditating. So his perspective right from the beginning was that yoga is samadhi, yoga is chittavritti nirodha. And we can use the word yoga in two different ways. On the one hand, we talk about a kind of state of mind, state of being. And on the other hand, if that state of being is difficult to achieve, then we have sadhana, we have practices which can get you there. So the word yoga is used in those two different ways. And a lot of time today, people are only really thinking of the second way. Yoga is the means to get to somewhere, but they forgot where or what, or maybe they never knew what that place was or was intended to be. Somehow that's got lost in translation a little bit. So that's what I was saying. It's kind of, we're working it backwards in a certain sense. We're doing this physical practice and then we're trying to make sense of it. And, where does it fit into an ancient system of philosophy, an ancient system of emancipation? But you only really need to listen to the teachers to understand what their intention was and how they saw it. So they advocated, at least Pattabhi Jois advocated studying the Yoga Sutra in great depth. That was his suggestion to students. And also so that when you practice yoga, you can be effective. If you don't know where you're going or what it's for, then, where can yoga take you? It can take you into some very inappropriate or wrong places, right. Obviously. For most of us, the way we get into yoga is through the physical body because we have stress and because we have pain and sickness and so on. And asana practice is great for therapy, although obviously you can hurt yourself as well. So that's the entry point for almost everybody, or certainly Ashtanga Vinyasa practitioners, the entry point is always through asana, typically. And then with maturing of practice, with time and good teaching or study or luck, you get to the real treasure, right, which is underneath. Yoga Sutra contains so many different lessons, and lessons which are appropriate for different types of people. And I believe it can be beneficial for anybody. You don't have to be an ascetic. If you want to achieve the highest peak levels of experience, then you have to become detached, for sure. But most people are not really very interested in being detached, or don't really understand what detachment, how it's meant to be used in yoga practice or yoga philosophy. Yeah. There's a big fear of that. And so there's also a big fear of the yoga philosophy as a sort of agenda for emancipation or for happiness even. Because there's this little obstacle. What do I do about all those things I really enjoy doing? Right. Well, what distinguishes Ashtanga yoga is breathing. It's breath-centered as far as various different types of or styles, brands of yoga. Ashtanga yoga is a breath-centered yoga. And the breath is traditionally held as being the most important tool in yoga practice because it's also an entryway into pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana. All the steps of yoga are connected with breathing, as is life, of course. I think it particularly, as a theme, it became stronger and stronger during the pandemic when everyone was afraid of breathing.
Right.
So I started writing about the importance of breathing and yogic breathing and how that could help people in many ways, not just physically, but also psychologically with fear, I didn't really develop a pranayama practice at that time, but I started teaching breathing as the central theme, which is also very much a part of asana practice, very much a part of pratyahara and dharana, dhyana practice. So it was more just a shift in focus to breathing as being the central aspect, which ties all these different things together, rather than always starting with asanas. And it coincided with me closing my shala. So the shala closed, I stopped teaching physical postures and adjusting people. And I went online to start to do some teaching. So it felt a bit more appropriate. Asana is very hard to adjust through the internet. So the ideal would be to find something really beautiful, blissful, positivity, whatever you want to call it, and then go back to your family or go out to the store on the corner, wherever, and be full of it still. That seems quite challenging for a lot of people. And I think part of the reason for that is we put so much into sadhana, too much into sadhana, a lot of times with Ashtanga, and we get tired. And so even though we can feel like we had 10 minutes fantastic shavasana, we're a bit sleep deprived, perhaps we haven't eaten enough, and it's very easy to be a little bit on edge when you do a very intense advanced practice. So I feel for many people, just learning how to do things a bit less intensely. Because if you're an intense person, then you get attracted to intense practices and you believe that those intense practices are actually serving you really well. Whereas beyond a certain point, it can be damaging, So if you're intense, you need to learn how to be soft. And one way to do that is to break your knee and your neck and whatever in your practice, or just to break down from, whatever it might be that bothers you. You can't progress, or you can't get certified, or your leg's broken, or whatever it is. And enjoy it for what it's meant to be for.